Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, Nightshift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. Today is going to be a solo episode. No guests are going to be interviewed. I just wanted to take an opportunity to do several things. First, I wanted to thank everyone who listens to the podcast, who has shared the podcast, and who has provided feedback about the podcast. I am so appreciative of your time because I know that there are a lot of podcasts out there and your time is very precious. So I truly, truly, truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to the Fearless Freedom with Dr. G podcast. It means a lot to me that you do this. I also wanted to read some of the comments that have been left so far on the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, I guess it's called, not really technically iTunes. And so I wanted to share that because those have been so encouraging and have completely warmed my heart and encouraged me that it's not just me and my closest friends that are listening to this podcast. I have to laugh about that because it's really funny to me. All right. So, and then the third thing I wanted to do was I had put out a question on Instagram and basically asked if there were I wanted a little bit of crowdsourcing, and I was crowdsourcing for what are some tips that you all use to help you to face fear. And so I want to share some of that with you in this episode as well. So I just wanted again to say thank you because I really appreciate you guys. And this is, and if you want to hear more detail on why I started a podcast, the very first episode really goes into that. But the crux of the matter is that I started this podcast because I have a big fear, and that big fear is public speaking. I am the person who gets the sweaty palms, the rapid heartbeat, the sleepless night before the talk. I am that person. And it may not be evident when I am on the stage speaking, but every single time that I get in front of people and I speak, I do have that fear. Now, I was very encouraged. So I basically a couple years ago said, okay, I am going to face this fear and overcome it. And if not completely overcome it, I'm going to figure a way to make that negative energy of the fear work in a positive manner. So one of the things that I did was I basically said that I was going to become a public speaker. I'm going to seek out opportunities to face my fear on a big scale. So that was one. Then the second thing was I basically said, okay, what is another way in which I can face my fear? So I started doing live broadcasts, and live broadcasts are tricky because anything can happen during the live. And if you've ever seen any of my lives, you kind of know that anything kind of does happen. Children coming out of the woodwork, dropping the camera, you name it, it has happened. Having food dangling in your teeth or hanging out on the side of your mouth as you're speaking. I mean, like I said, you name it, it has happened. But it's live, and that's life, right? Life is live and in living color, and anything can happen. So once you accept that and you roll with it, you're all set. So that is number 2, the second way in which I have been facing my fear of public speaking. The third way is literally what I'm doing right now, talking to you in this podcast. Talking to other people who I reach out to, who I may have never met in person, and having a conversation in public. That is facing a fear that I've had, my fear of public speaking. All right, so I just told you my 3 ways in which I'm actively facing my fear of public speaking. So now I wanted to just really take a look at the feedback that I got from the questionnaire. So remember I said that I put a post out actually in my Instagram stories asking for some tips, or doing some crowdsourcing for some tips on how to deal with facing fear, how to deal with fear. And so a couple of the responses. So one tip is to acknowledge the fear. So the thought process there, I'm thinking, now I don't know, I'm not in this person's head, but the thought process there is likely, once you've recognized something, then you are more apt to deal with it, right? So if you have no idea something is happening, then you have no idea how you're going to proceed. So if you face that fear, so for me personally, I recognize that I have a fear of public speaking. That was the first step. All right. The next tip is asking yourself this question: is this fear positive or negative? Wow. That's a deep one. Is it positive or negative? Well, it definitely takes some soul searching to figure that one out, right? I mean, you have a fear of spiders. You kind of have to wonder to yourself, well, is the fear of spiders a positive or a negative fear? You know, depending on your situation. So if you live on a farm, or if you live in the woods, then that's going to be a problem because there's going to be a lot of spiders around. Whereas if you live in a city, probably this is not too bad because you probably aren't going to be encountering spiders as frequently as if you lived in a more wooded area. So if you take a look at another fear, so if you take my fear, for example, the fear of public speaking, is that a positive or a negative fear? I would have to say that it is a positive fear because it is something that once I harness the energy from it, can definitely become a life source for change, right? Because I mean, it basically caused me to want to go after it more. It caused me to want to get better at speaking in public. It caused me to want to help other people think about their fears and want to face those fears. So I would say that was a positive, that my fear of public speaking in my situation is a positive fear. So positive energy can be gleaned from my fear of public speaking, manifested by how I give to an audience when I am speaking in front of them, manifested by how this particular medium, this podcast, allows for others to share their insights, their experiences with fear and how they overcame it. So yes, I would say it is a positive fear. All right. So the third tip that came up, and I probably will only cover 3 for the sake of time. The third tip that came up was just being okay with where you stand in your fear. So, you know, kind of, and I guess this must go a little bit along with assessing the lethality of the fear, right? So, what do I mean by that? So, for example, if you have a fear of brushing your teeth, that could be problematic because there are some health consequences that could come along with you not brushing your teeth. You can have dental caries. You can have infections that seed from your teeth and go down into your neck or up into your eyes and cause some serious, serious health problems. So that fear and the approach to it could be lethal to you, right? It could be lethal. So in a situation like that, so a less drastic situation, okay, having a fear of falling off your bike, which was one of my fears when I was a kid. Having a fear of falling off your bike, that's probably not so bad, right? Because that's not something that is going to be health critical. That's not something that is going to be detrimental if it's faced and pursued. So basically looking at your fear and saying, okay, this thing, I'm going to be okay. Is this going to kill me? If I do this thing, is it going to kill me? No, then this is okay. I am okay that I have this fear, and I'm going to figure out if it's a positive or negative fear. And then I'm going to figure out if I would like to address facing it. Boom. That's it. That's your truth. That's where you're going to be standing, and that's perfectly fine. All right. So those were the tips. And I kind of elaborated on what I thought the people would be thinking. So, that's a little bit of poetic license that comes along with being the podcast host. Oh my goodness. All right. So now I wanted to again say thank you for listening. And I wanted to go through the awesome comments that are on the reviews here. So, okay. So I have the first one is: learning to overcome fear is the first step in achieving success. Dr. G is a dynamic speaker and has a powerful message to share. Thanks for all the pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much, Dr. Kilani Tuit. Thank you so much for leaving that one. Here's another. Go big or go home, sister. My new battle cry. Thank you for sharing your story and for this great podcast. Sure to motivate and change lives. That was left by Kitty Hearts, Dr. Annette Ansong. Thank you, Dr. Ansong. This one says, this is a life-changing podcast. Dr. G is walking the walk, not just talking the talk. She is helping others face their fears by facing her own fear of public speaking. This podcast will change your life. I love that she pushes us to, quote, punch fear in the face, end quote. Dr. G is the real deal. If you need to finally confront the big scary monster in your life, this is the podcast for you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Dr. Darko. Dr. Renee Darko, thank you so much. This one says, leaving no excuses, and this was left by Mudfoot35. I can already see the progression with each episode. I love transparency and the spirit onto which the podcast is done. Your podcast is moving forward into action. Thank you so much. Archie Red left this comment. Dr. Charmaine is inspiring. Dr. Charmaine and I have known each other for a few years, and she is one inspiring woman. I'm so excited to listen to her podcast and hear her insights on overcoming fear. Oh, now I have to figure out who Archie Red is because I am not sure. Embarrassing. Okay, cool. That's good. All right, this one was left by Colorless Aurora 98, and it's entitled Frugal Physician. Such wise words from the Amazon. I've learned a lot from this. Truly amazing. Thank you. Indeed, we can only grow as a person when we face our fears. All right. So thank you so much for indulging me as I read the comments that are currently in the the cashier on Apple Podcasts. I am so appreciative of every comment, of every rating that you all give me, because what it does, it helps the podcast to get more visibility, because this is definitely a passion project, and I don't have a team, or I don't have like producers or anything like that. I'm doing pretty much everything myself. And so it becomes a little bit challenging to really get the podcast out there and in the listening ears of as many people as possible. So I do appreciate every single time you share the podcast, every single time that you listen, and for all of the comments that were left, and for all of the ratings that were left. I appreciate every single one of them. And so that's what I wanted to share. Oh, I did want to let you guys know that I am reading a really cool book. It's called Dare to Lead, and it is by Brene Brown, who, by the way, is getting lots of airtime now. She has a special on Netflix, and then she just did something with Melinda Gates. So, and she has a big billboard in New York City. It's like, wow, that's awesome. But she's pretty awesome. I don't know her personally, but I kind of feel like I do, because I've been listening to her and watching her videos and reading her books. You know how that goes. You feel like you know the person when you just watch them on the screen and you listen to them and you read what they wrote. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you that there is, so Brene Brown is like an amazing speaker. She has this amazing TED Talk that she did back in the day that has been played millions of times, and she just does so much good work, particularly dealing with organizations and leadership and all that good stuff. But anyway, here you have this dynamic speaker who is so good, amazing, engaging, and she's getting ready to go on stage to talk to a bunch of folks that are in the executive suite of an organization. So a mixture of executives are in this audience. And so she's about to go on stage. This is in the beginning of the book. She recounts this experience. She's about to go on stage, and all of a sudden she is overcome by fear. She literally takes a peek outside the curtain, and she's looking at the audience, and everybody's wearing like a suit, and she's having these negative thoughts come through her head, and she's making these assumptions that are not positive just because of what the audience looks like. And she's suddenly frozen. She's thinking, how can I engage this audience? How can I help them? And it just took some simple words from someone that was close to her, as well as from a complete stranger. And the words were pretty simple. The words were, "These are people." And she's like, "These are people. These are people that are here to listen to what I have to say." And so her whole perspective on the talk just completely changed, and she moved from a space of closed mindset, like really feeling like she's in a space where, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have anything to give to these individuals. I don't know how I can engage with these individuals. I am afraid. She acknowledged that she was afraid. And then she completely flipped it. She was like, yeah, these are people. These are people who have backstories. These are people who have families. These are people who have friends. These are people who do all the same things that I do. All the same biological things. You know what I mean? And that just totally flipped it in the positive direction. So now her whole attitude was, oh my God, these are people, and I am the person that is here to give what I know to these people. I am the giver. And so she went on that stage and she just killed it. She even says that, there were some belly laughs and there was so much engagement in the talk. She became very vulnerable during the talk. She shared some things that she didn't plan to share, she just got to that point where she just felt so open and so giving that she just laid it bare, leaned into the audience, gave to the audience, and she got feedback that was amazing. And it just so happened that in that same audience, there were quite a few speaker agents that were there, and it just completely blew up her calendar. Like her calendar just went boom, kaboom, just blew up. And she just got so many opportunities from that. And, so as I read that, I was really taken aback because I was really surprised. Brene Brown, the Brene Brown, who is such a phenomenal speaker, who can work a crowd no matter what the size and do it with such ease and confidence. How could she be afraid of speaking in public? And it just gave me so much hope because, it just really, every single time now, when I'm getting ready to give a talk, I just have to think about that she said, it's just like, these are people, and I am the person that is here to give what I know to these people because that's what needs to be done. And it just completely changes how the delivery of my talk turns out, how the engagement within the talk happens. I mean, it's just a complete shift. It's amazing that such a simple thought process can make such a marked difference in how things turn out as far as your talk. So I just wanted to share that with you. So, it's like no matter what level you are, no matter in what industry or what area in your life you're facing the fear. So maybe you have a fear of starting your own business, or maybe you have a fear of changing something in your career. Maybe you have a fear of going back to school. Maybe you have a fear of going and learning something that's going to set you apart from the rest. I don't know what your fear is, but whatever that is, just realize that you are not alone in that fear, and you can do this. You can totally do this. So whether you follow the tips that I mentioned before, that was crowdsourced from Instagram, or you simply acknowledge your fear and figure out what your battle plan is going to be, just know that no matter what you do, you can be fearlessly free by facing your fear. So I know that I always ask my guests those 3 questions, right? Like, what does fearless freedom mean? Fearless freedom means to me that I can just give and not have to worry, that I can make an impact, that I can help to change many lives just through positive action. That's what fearless freedom means to me. So I want you to ask yourself, how would you fill in that blank? Fearless freedom means to me. Whatever your answer is, it's awesome, okay? Because it's your truth. So, all right. So that's all I have for you guys today. I really appreciate, like I said, you listening and you participating in being part of the Fearless Freedom Tribe. Love y'all. And just know that you got this.